Isabella Torres stood in the middle of the King family's grand ballroom, surrounded by laughter that wasn't kind. The chandeliers sparkled above, but all the light in the room felt sharpened into daggers aimed at her. She wore a plain cream dress, hair held back with a silver clip, no makeup to hide her natural features. She didn't shimmer like the women around her, draped in jewels and designer gowns. She looked simple, ordinary, too ordinary for Nathaniel King's fiancée, they thought. The King estate was a palace of marble floors, golden walls, and cold eyes. Every guest was someone powerful, senators, CEOs, old money, and all of them judged her. Victoria King, Nathaniel's mother, swept toward her in emerald silk, her smile razor-sharp. "Sweetheart," she said loudly, "that dress isn't up to our standards. Did you borrow it from a thrift shop?" Laughter spread. A man muttered, "She looks like she wandered in from a bus stop." Isabella's fingers tightened on her champagne glass, but she said nothing. Her silence burned more than a retort. Victoria smirked and leaned closer. "Imagine my son with someone so ordinary." A cousin chimed in cruelly, "Darling, tell us where you shop. I could use a laugh." Isabella set her glass down and replied softly, "I shop where people don't need to buy their confidence." The cousin's smile froze. A few guests looked uneasy, but the mockery resumed. Nathaniel, tall and polished, stood nearby. He didn't defend her. He didn't even meet her eyes. His silence was worse than their words. "She's clearly after his money," someone said. "She has no class," another added. The insults built like a storm. Adrian Cole, the King family lawyer, smirked at her. "If you loved Nathan, you'd bring something to the table. But the Torres name? Worthless." "You seem very sure of that," Isabella said, calm but sharp. Adrian sneered. "I know a gold digger when I see one." Another guest waved a salad fork mockingly. "Do you even know how to use this?" The crowd roared. Isabella twirled a fork in her hand and set it down. "I know enough to eat without making a scene." The laughter faltered. But still, Nathaniel stayed silent. Shoes, hair, voice, everything about her was picked apart. A banker scoffed. "Bravery doesn't buy you a seat at this table. You're out of your league." Isabella stepped closer, her voice quiet but cutting. "Leagues are for people too scared to play the real game." The room shifted uncomfortably. For the first time, their laughter didn't sound so sure. But Victoria wasn't done. Raising a glass, she boasted the crowd. "The King family has just secured a $950 million deal with Torres Global Tech. That's the kind of power we bring. Not everyone can keep up." The jab was clear. Guests applauded, sneering at Isabella. A hedge fund manager smirked. "Girls like you sneak into our world, but always crash and burn." Isabella took out a silver pen from her clutch, twirling it between her fingers. "Some of us don't need to sneak." They laughed, but uneasily. No one noticed the small Torres Global card tucked inside her clutch. The wedding day. The King estate was transformed into a spectacle. Thousands of roses, hundreds of guests. Isabella walked to the altar in a simple ivory gown. She looked serene, but the whispers began immediately. Victoria rose mid-ceremony, her voice cold. "Before my son agrees, tell us, Isabella, what wealth did your family have?" Laughter erupted. Phones flashed. An influencer snapped photos, sneering. "This is going viral." Caption: "Thrift store bride." Isabella looked at her. "Make sure you get my good side." Nathaniel shifted. "Mother, maybe you're right." The betrayal stung. Victoria's voice cut through the tent. "This marriage would stain our name." The crowd cheered her on. "She's a nobody." "Nathan deserves better." Isabella stood still, face calm as steel. Then she walked forward and took the microphone. "Thank you," she said, her voice clear, "for showing me who you truly are. This wedding ends here." Gasps shook the room. Nathaniel turned red. "How dare you humiliate me? Without me, you're nothing." Adrian sneered. "Without King Group, you have no future. Torres Global belongs to us." Isabella smiled faintly and pressed a button on her phone. The massive screen behind her flickered to life. Torres Global Tech officially terminates $950 million contract with King Group due to fraud and misconduct. The tent went silent. Phones buzzed with breaking news alerts. King Group stock plummeted in real time. Isabella's voice was steady. I don't need this family. I am Isabella Torres, CEO of Torres Global, the one you mocked. The words detonated in the room. Guests gasped, horrified. Victoria staggered back, pale. Adrian's smirk vanished. Nathaniel collapsed into a chair. Whispers spread like fire. She's a CEO? The contract is gone? Victoria begged, trembling. Forgive us. Restore the deal. Adrian stammered. We can renegotiate. Nathaniel grabbed her hand, desperate. I love you, Isabella. Please. She pulled her hand away. Her silence was her answer. As the King family fell apart, Isabella stood tall. She announced into microphone, Torres Global will transfer the deal to Harper Dynamics. Panic erupted. Guests scrambled, desperate to escape being tied to a sinking empire. Stock alerts buzzed. News headlines spread. Bride humiliated at altar, revealed SEO. King family empire collapses. Nathaniel shouted after her, his voice raw. No one will ever love you. Only your money. You'll die alone. Isabella paused at the exit. From her clutch, she pulled out a worn photo. Herself as a child with her late father. She held it up briefly. I'm never alone, she said softly, before walking away. The crowd fell silent. And then, from the guests, a man stepped forward. James Harper, CEO of Harper Dynamics. He took her hand, his voice calm. We didn't just sign a deal. I'd like to build something real with you. Gasps spread again, this time in awe. Isabella's eyes softened. She said nothing but tightened her hand in his. Together, they walked out as the King family crumbled behind them. The fallout. Victoria was dropped from society circles overnight. Adrian lost his position. Nathaniel's reputation shattered across tabloids. Guests who mocked Isabella were exposed on viral videos, losing sponsorships and partnerships. One by one, their cruelty destroyed them. Isabella never looked back. She didn't need to. Her silence had spoken louder than any words. For everyone ever mocked, humiliated, or underestimated, her story was proof. You're enough. You always were. The fallout after the ceremony spread faster than wildfire. Within 24 hours, King Group stock price plummeted. Financial reporters dissected every detail, each headline worse than the last. Torres Global CEO cancels $950 million deal at the altar. The King dynasty crumbles overnight. Humiliated heiress? No, hidden titan. The story dominated front pages, trended on social media, and filled news broadcasts across the country. Overnight, Isabella Torres went from whispered ridicule to global recognition. At the mansion, Victoria King's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Former allies now distanced themselves, feigning ignorance. Invitations she had once commanded evaporated. Private clubs quietly revoked her memberships. Even her so-called friends whispered behind her back, the very same way she had once whispered about Isabella. Adrian Cole, the lawyer who had mocked Isabella the loudest, faced his own ruin. His firm, unwilling to be tainted by his arrogance, forced his resignation. His name became synonymous with short-sighted arrogance, the lawyer who laughed away $1 billion. And Nathaniel King, once polished, admired, and envied, he became the face of betrayal. Tabloids printed his silence beside Isabella's strength, replaying the moment he hesitated to defend her. Brands that had once paid him to appear at events quietly cut ties. Even his friends, the same who had mocked Isabella, abandoned him. No one wanted to be dragged down with a sinking ship. The King estate, once buzzing with lavish parties, fell silent. Curtains stayed drawn, cars stayed parked, and security guards no longer smiled at the gates. The mighty had fallen, and the world had seen it happen in real time. Isabella, however, didn't linger in the wreckage. She continued forward. She returned to Torres Global headquarters the next morning, walking through the towering glass building that bore her family name. Employees lined the lobby, applauding as she passed, not because she had humiliated the Kings, but because she had stood firm with dignity. Many of them had seen the viral videos. Isabella standing calm in a storm of cruelty, pressing a single button that shifted the balance of power. To them, she wasn't just their CEO. She was proof that resilience mattered more than appearances. That same week, Isabella finalized the redirection of the $950 million contract to Harper Dynamics. James Harper, sharp and steady, met her at her office with the paperwork. "You didn't just take a deal from them," he said, sliding the folder across her desk. "You prove that respect is part of business. Without it, everything collapses." Isabella signed the papers without hesitation, her hand steady. She remembered her father's words years ago, the pen he had given her heavy with meaning. Power isn't about proving yourself. It's about truth. She closed the folder, her eyes meeting James's. "Then let's build something on truth," she said. The partnership flourished quickly. Harper Dynamics and Torres Global announced joint projects that revolutionized renewable energy and artificial intelligence. Investors, once hesitant, now lined up. The media shifted its tone, praising Isabella as a visionary who had turned humiliation into history. But beneath the headlines, Isabella lived quietly. She didn't flaunt her wealth. She still wore simple clothes, still carried herself with the calm grace she had held at the King estate. What had changed was not her, but how the world saw her. At charity galas where she had once been mocked, silence followed her arrival, then applause. At business summits, the very people who had doubted her now sought her approval. Invitations poured in from leaders and royals. Yet Isabella never forgot the sting of that ballroom, the weight of every laugh and whisper. When asked by a reporter she regretted how it ended, she replied simply, "I regret nothing. Some storms come to clear the path." As for Nathaniel, he tried more than once to reach her. He sent flowers, letters, even begged for a private meeting. Isabella declined them all. In her world now, silence was the answer. His betrayal was carved too deeply to erase. Victoria tried her own apologies, public and private. None were acknowledged. The world that once revolved around her had shifted permanently, and Isabella never looked back. Months later, Isabella stood in a boardroom of glass and steel, overlooking the skyline at sunset. James stood beside her, a quiet presence, his hand brushing hers. "You carried this alone for a long time," he said softly. Isabella's gaze remained on the horizon. Alone doesn't mean empty. For the first time in years, she allowed herself a small smile, not for the empire she commanded, not for the revenge completed, but for the peace she had earned. The world continued turning. The kings faded into a cautionary tale, their names spoken only as an example of arrogance destroyed by cruelty. Isabella Torres, however, became more than a headline. She became a symbol. For every person who had been belittled, laughed at, dismissed, her story was proof. You don't need to scream. You don't need to beg. You just need to know your worth. Because one day, when the world tries to strip it from you, your silence will be louder than their noise. And that is how Isabella Torres, mocked for her dress, underestimated for her simplicity, walked away not just victorious, but unshaken. Her father's words echoed in her heart as the city lights glittered beneath her. "You're enough, Bella. Always." And now, the world finally knew it too.